Hello makers, it is Easter, and in Easter you have an excuse, and that excuse is, well, you get to eat your own body weight in chocolate. So today I figured I'm gonna include chocolate in the mix of 3D printing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make a 3D printed model, and from that you make a silicone mold, and from that you make chocolate. So stick around. Now the process is relatively simple. It is slightly messy, but simple. Now you will need a silicone molding kit. Now more specifically, you will need a food-safe silicone molding kit, which you can find on Amazon. It comes in two sizes. There's like a ½ kilo and a 1 kilo. For this, I'm going to be using the 1 kilogram version. We start off by finding a model we want to print, and seeing as it's Easter, I wanted to try some eggs, some Easter eggs. So I got the woven egg by Christopher Freeze, and seeing as the pattern is not too complex with not too many crevices, it just makes the mold release much easier. Next, what I do is I grab that model and I import it into Slick 3R from Casha, because I will be printing this with the Mark 2.5S. However, you can use this trick just to slice the model itself. And when I say slice, I mean cut it in half, because seeing as this is a mold where you need a whole egg, you will need 2 halves. So first what I did was I rotated the model to an orientation where I can just do a horizontal cut right straight through the middle. That's very easy to do, and once that's done, you have 2 halves. The next thing you need to do is take note of the measurements of 1/2. So remove just one of the 2 halves and you get the measurements on the side. Next, I need to design very quickly a container where I can put the mold in. So I go into Fusion 360, I have the measurements of half the egg, so I simply draw a square, slightly larger, a few millimeters larger on the side and the top and the bottom, and I make a square. Once that's done, I offset that square by 1 millimeter and I simply extrude upwards. I extrude the base 1 millimeter and the sides about 5 millimeters more than the height of the model itself. Once you have those 2 items, you can simply just slice. I sliced mine at 100 microns to get as much detail as possible. And after that, I threw them on the Casha Mark 2.5S for printing. Apart from that model, I also decided to do a couple more models. I used the same Kraken egg that I showcased in last year's Easter video by Attn. It's a beautiful pattern and I felt it would be fun to do. And I also decided to use a Moai because, you know, just a fun shape to do. Once everything was printed, I simply glued everything in place. I put some super glue at the base of the model and just laid it onto the mold enclosures, which I had also printed, making sure that I have enough space on the sides of the models themselves. Next stage is to have the mixture ready for the silicone molding kit. Now I don't want to waste by doing too much and have too much extra, so what I do is I fill all the molds with water. Once that's done, I throw them all in the same bowl, and then I have sort of like a liquid capacity. I know exactly how much liquids I will need, so I mark the bowl. I get myself a scale and I throw the bowl on the scale. I reset to 0 and I start filling the bowl with the base mixture of the silicone. Once I reach the line that I marked, I know the weight. Now the mix of the activator, let's call it, and the base is 1:10 ratio. So I know that all I need now, there's about 600 something grams on the scale. So I'll need about 60 plus grams of activator in it. So I reset the scale again, pour in the 60 plus grams of activator, and then I start mixing. It is a bit messy, so I do suggest you wear gloves for this. It's also quite tiring because it's not as viscous as you would want it to be, so it just takes a while. Once that's done, all that's left is to literally just pour them in the molds. Now, there is a bit of a trick to this because I do not have a vacuum chamber here, and that would make life so much easier because you get to extract all the air bubbles out. And in this way, there's always going to be that little bit of air bubbles sitting here and there, which is not a major thing, but it can be annoying. Once I pour the silicone into the molds, what I do is I grab the molds themselves and I kind of like hit them against the table or bang them against the table, and that forces those air bubbles upwards, and you keep on doing that for a couple of minutes on each one just to get rid of as many bubbles as possible. You won't be able to get rid of all of them without a vacuum chamber, but it does the trick. Now, if you leave it out in the air, it'll take about 24 hours to dry. In my case, what I do to accelerate the process is I use my food dehydrator. And if I set it to 50 degrees and I throw the molds in there, it'll take approximately 2 hours and they will be completely cured. Apart from that, when you use the dehydrator, what happens is the silicone sort of becomes a bit more viscous, so any small air bubbles tend to come to the surface and pop. After about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, take them out, literally cut open the mold, taking care of extracting the 3D printed parts inside the mold, and you got yourself a mold. Next is the fun part. You need to melt some chocolate, and no, that's actually relatively easy. I wouldn't suggest you do it in a microwave. What I do is I simply grab a pot or a pan, fill it up with water, boil it, throw in another plate or dish inside or bowl, and have the chocolate melt inside. Once it's melted, simply scoop it up and throw it inside the mold. Now, I wanted to do two types of molds. One of them was with a hollow egg, and the other one was like a rock solid egg. It's going to take a lot of chocolate for that, but that's fine. But one of the hollowed out eggs, it's a bit tricky, it's a bit messy, and it takes a bit more time simply because I don't have all the tools to have like a centrifugal mold where I can just push the chocolate on the outside. So in my case, what I did was I threw in some chocolate, moved it onto the side, let it cool down until it comes a bit manageable to just push onto the side and it sticks there. Once it cools down, add a little bit more and just keep on pushing onto the outside until you get like a nice thick 3 or 4 millimeter layer on the edge of the mold. Throw them in the fridge, leave them overnight, and the next morning, just slowly and carefully take them out of the mold. And as you can see, they turned out much better than I actually expected. They turned out beautifully. Now, to attach the two halves together, it's actually relatively easy. You can just melt a little bit of the chocolate on the base and just attach the two together. I use a spatula or a knife, just slowly heat it up, and then just enough to melt a little bit of chocolate so the two halves can be attached together. And the results are absolutely epic. Now, the hollowed out egg is actually cool because you can actually throw some little gift inside for someone, which I should have done, but then I closed it off, so I completely forgot. But the rest, as you can see, turned out great. They're not perfect once again because I didn't have a vacuum chamber, but they did turn out great. And I also included some white chocolate in the mix just to give it a bit of marble effect, and they turned out absolutely great. And that is it for today. Now I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy these, and I'm gonna give the others to my daughter because so good. But for those wondering, I used Milka chocolate because it's just like one of my favorite chocolates ever. So yeah, that is it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And as always, happy Easter, guys. Yeah. Oh, so good. Oh, so good. Bye, moi.